Hello, it's Foreign News O'Clock on Allnews Nigeria. I am Opeyemi Olugbemi. Here are the headlines for today. Unrest in France as protesters, police clash. NICOLA STURGEON formally resigns. Now the news in detail. Protesters and police clash on the edges of street demonstration in France on Tuesday as hundreds of thousands of people took part in marches against Emmanuel Macron's use of constitutional executive powers to push through an unpopular rise in the pension age to 64. While demonstrations in Paris and Nantes were peaceful, with the majority of demonstrators chanting and calling for the pension changes to be scrapped, on the margins in some cities, men in masks or hoodies clashed with police. In Paris, police fired tear gas and lodged a charge after some people at the head of the protest, dressed in black with their faces covered, raided and looted a supermarket and then started a fire as the march approached Place de la Nation in the east of the city. At least 22 people were arrested in the capital by the afternoon, according to Paris police. In the western city of Nantes, protesters threw projectiles at security forces who responded with tear gas. A bank branch was set on fire and rubbish bins were set alight near a court building. Police in Lyon in southeastern France used water cannon. In Lille, police used tear gas after bus stops were smashed. In Bordeaux, some hooded people lit fires and projectiles were thrown. In Toulouse, police used water cannon. Turnout at the street protests across France appeared to be slightly lower than the last day of strikes and protests last Thursday. The Interior Ministry said 740,000 people took part in protests across France. Nearly 2 weeks after the government pushed the new pension law through using a special provision that bypassed a parliament to vote, unions have vowed to continue mass protests to get the government to back down. Emmanuel Macron refuses to abandon the increase in the pension age, which was a central part of his manifesto before he was elected to a second term last year. Strikes affected transport, the energy sector, schools, and civil aviation on Tuesday. About 15% of service stations in France are short of petrol because of refinery strikes. Protesters in Nantes, western France, blocked access roads to the city. High school union said 500 high schools had been barricaded and closed across the country. Dozens of university buildings were also barricaded and closed. The Eiffel Tower was also closed because staff were striking. In other news, NICOLA STURGEON has officially tendered her resignation as Scotland's First Minister in a letter to the King. Ms. STURGEON announced last month that she would stand down once a successor was appointed. Humza Yousaf was elected to replace her as SNP leader on Monday and will be confirmed as the new First Minister in a Holyrood vote on Tuesday afternoon. After writing a resignation letter, Ms. STURGEON left her Boot House residence for the final time. She was Scotland's longest-serving First Minister, having spent about 3,000 days, more than 8 years, in the role. Mr. Yousaf will be formally elected as Ms. STURGEON's successor and Scotland's 6th First Minister in a vote of MSPs. The new SNP leader is virtually certain to become the first ethnic minority leader of a devolved government by winning a majority of the votes. The leaders of the three opposition parties, the Conservatives, Labour and Lib Dems, are expected to stand against him but have no prospect of winning the contest. The Scottish Greens, who have a power-sharing agreement with the SNP, have already said they will back Mr. Yousaf, which should ensure he wins a majority in the first round of voting. All of the candidates will make a brief speech before the vote, with Mr. Yousaf expected to be formally sworn in as First Minister in a brief ceremony at the Court of Session in Edinburgh on Wednesday. And that's it on today's news. To keep up with Allnews Nigeria, kindly follow us on all social media platforms displayed on the screen. We'll be back with more news updates tomorrow. Until then, stay tuned. I am Opeyemi Olugbemi. Do have a lovely evening.